about it.
All right, I think we can get started. We've got quite a few people logged on now. So again, I'm Katrina McAfee. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Association Analytics. Before I get started with the topic and introductions on our host today, I just wanted to bring up something that's super important to us. Some of you may have seen this in some of our emails or when we were at ASAE Annual this year, but we've rolled out a new website and a new kind of motto surrounding our organization for the love of data. So we love data, obviously, but we really love it for the insights that it enables you guys as either our clients or just associations in general to help you grow and be better at your jobs and just helping all of you do better. So we've actually officially launched our new website that embodies our love of data and the heart behind everything we do as a company. After I do intros, I'll throw the link in the chat if you want to check it out. The super cool part about it is the resources section. So I'll put that link in there as well. But there's tons of resources for associations, all of our on-demand recordings of these how-to series that we've done over, I think, since June, maybe May. We've had sessions.
Yeah, easily April or May.
Yeah, so we'll throw those. I'll throw that link in. You can check those out. We have our blog that we've really started to ramp up, so you should definitely subscribe to that. But it's all centered around topics and things to help you as associations, just like this how-to series. All right, so we will get started. Our topic today, as I'm sure you are aware, is how to use data to support your strategic goals. So that it is not just for, the top board members or exec levels. It's really that all the way down to specialists and everything in between. So we're excited to have you all here to kind of have Julie and David walk you through their perspective on how you should approach that. So your host today, and this is a little different than if you've attended our how-to sessions in the past. Usually it's the Bill and Greg show, which we love, but we thought this session would be fun to have special guests, the big honchos at A2, presenting their perspective. So we have Julie Shulo. She's our CEO. As our CEO, she really set out to change the way associations do business by giving them the ability to use data to make decisions with confidence. So that's a big part of what you'll hear today. And then next we have David DiLorenzo. He's been in the association space for 25 years. A lot of you know him as D-Lo, which you're welcome to call him. He's helping lead innovation and strategy in the association space. He's been doing that for a long time, very experienced in that area. So again, a lot of what you'll hear today and why we have the two of them as special guests presenting on this topic. So with that, I will hand it over to Julie.
All right, thank you. And thank you everyone sharing some of your fall plans and where you guys are from. We have a packed agenda today. We'll quickly talk about who we are, why we're here presenting to you if you don't already know. And we have a lot of concepts to share with you, as well as a couple of how-tos since we are on the how-to webinar. So how to become a data-driven organization at a strategic level. We're going to share with you the 6 value modes to tie data to strategy. Metrics everyone understands. So we're going to show you how to find your vitals as an association and to know your audience and how to communicate the results of the data and findings and insights. We'll wrap it up with some key takeaways and questions. Please throughout as well, make sure you change on your to on the chat to all panelists and attendees if you haven't already, because we want this to be interactive. We're happy to answer questions throughout and take the discussion and conversation in whichever direction interests you the most. So really quickly, who we are Association Analytics. We're based here in Arlington, Virginia. We have out-of-the-box integrations, and we have a SaaS platform, a data and analytics platform, Acumen. Many of you may already be on it. You might catch a glimpse here. But today we're really focusing on you guys and showing you how to connect your data to your strategy. So we're going to kick it off with a poll question right off the bat. What is your association, or where is your association at with your strategic plan? So are you just starting one? We have one. We have an old one that needs an overhaul, or we just completed one. I guess another one on there should have been like, I don't even know.
Yeah, that would tie in a little bit with what we're talking about today, right?
Right.
Do you know what the board expects of you?
Give everybody a minute to hop back over and tie this out. And typically for this one, we'll see if the results reflect this, but we typically see people do have one, but when we ask the follow-up question on whether your metrics and data tie to your strategic plan, that's when it starts to kind of fall off and get a little more fuzzy on connecting those. And that's exactly why we picked the topic today to show you how to do that. So most people fall into the bucket of we have one. Like we check the box, who knows how much we pull it out, who knows how much our operations support that, certainly our key metrics support that. And so hopefully some of the things that we share with you today will help you move closer to not just having one, but really utilizing it and operationalizing your strategic plan. So thank you guys for sharing that. So now I want everybody to think about, does everyone at your association speak the same language? So when I think about it, how associations actually view their data assets is all over the map, right? Managers typically use it every day. There's directors making decisions, hopefully based off of some data. A lot of times they don't even fully trust it. And many find basic statistics and analytics confusing. And so breaking that down and kind of demystifying it into simple vitals is something we're going to show you how to do here. And when you can do this, data can really accelerate really even most of your business strategies by improving those processes and empowering the people that need the data in their fingertips to make those decisions. There's typically a breakdown. So I'm going to put this into perspective of something everybody can probably understand, the game of telephone, right? So we've all played this at some point, whether directly or indirectly. And this goes to everybody kind of speaking the same language. So think about the board says something, right? The board puts out a mandate. Let's use the example of, okay, the board wants to better engage members, right? So staff hears this kind of through the grapevine, through the telephone, and they use their experiences and anecdotes to create some new content. It might be different. It might not all be the same theme. And you know what? It kind of falls flat. Not every time, but in this scenario, falls flat, right? So they're not necessarily using data that they have. They're not using data analysis to really figure out what members are engaging. What does that even mean? Right? I feel like boards throw it out all the time, and it doesn't always mean the same thing to the board level, to the executives, to the staff. So now think about how the information could flow a little bit differently. We now maybe know that it is student engagement that the board really wants to increase. And we also know that student members attend our annual conference, and those students are likely to renew. So now we can start to connect these from a strategic level down to data that we already have to insights and action. So now we're going to make sure that we get students to the annual conference. And the great thing about this is then we can follow up, right, to kind of close that loop to say, okay, we did this. We're now going to offer a discount to make sure we get more of these people there, more students, and we can see the increase in engagement and retention. And so now we're connecting, rather than playing a weird game of telephone that happens in any business, we're now connecting the strategic level of, okay, we need to engage our members to exactly what segment of members, to the data that we have, to marketing, to tie it back to the metrics that matter. And so it could be something as simple as that. So now we're going to go back into some of the barriers that you might experience and break down how you can actually go through some of the foundational pieces of tying data to your strategic plan. So David, I'm going to kick it over to you.
All right, thanks, Julie. Yeah, we're gonna kind of jump into, working with board, working with goals, how data is a big part of that, as Julie alluded to. Oftentimes it is kind of that game of telephone. The board says something to a small number of people, and by the time it gets to the people who are actually executing against that, something gets lost. So a lot of what we're trying to talk about today is keep data in front, keep strategy in front, and be involved in those processes, and how to do it. So just kind of reminding people, what are some of the barriers that we see, common organizational issues that are out there, and maybe in the chat put if 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these actually apply in your organization. Typically, the most things we see are resistance to change, whether that's a strategic planning process where we've always done it this way and we don't involve other people, and we're going to do it very old school. This is about systems, data management. Really, resistance to change, if anything, applies in a lot of organizations to getting where you want to go. Internal politics is always can see that. Somebody owns something. Oftentimes in an organization, the people who own the strategic planning process don't typically own the data and data management and data governance and a lot of systems. So making sure you can tie those things together. Lack of senior level support for getting data into your strategic processes and tying data to strategic goals. But I think the biggest one, and this was kind of the exercise that Julie was just walking through in the game of telephone, is just that poor KPI alignment across the organization. And when I say across, I'm thinking up and down, all the way from volunteer leaders and committee and board work that are setting goals and objectives and things that they want to see happen, and then down to the people who have to execute against that and then report back to a board. And I think that was Julie was getting at, and making sure we're understanding what needs to be done, so that we can actually do that work and get the data to support it. So how do we kind of start out when we think about strategic planning and what that means with a data influence? Okay, why are we even, what is the thought process of even collecting data? Because we need it to really bring into the strategic planning process in order to truly measure and perform as an organization. I've seen far too many times that so many people go off a board, some people that are putting together a plan, and they're not really thinking about some of these data initiatives. When I think about when you're building any strategic plan and you're building those pieces together, you really got to understand what the impact of those things are going to be. What is the historical impact? What is the present impact of the KPI is going to be? What are the opportunities for expanding an impact by doing new things? And then the most important question is, how are they even going to know if you're succeeding? What are the metrics? Are you laying those things out? You can't just have a very amorphous strategic plan without really understanding what does success look like. Always with planning and using data, understanding who the beneficiaries are. Julie was talking in the telephone example about looking at something for student members. It could be really anything, but if you don't know who benefits, have their needs shifted, who are you currently focusing your attention on? Who do you not even know in your audience? Who might be in your membership system that you're not focusing on? Who are you going to address those people in the future? You're even going to know who they are, and how might the needs shift of your membership over time? So you really always got to be thinking from a strategic level and digging into your data and understanding that audience, understanding who the beneficiaries are, and then listening. Pulling feedback data into any strategic planning process. What are stakeholders saying from different groups? How are they acting? Are you reading survey data? Or are you actually looking at behavior and looking at what people are actually doing? Or are people attending things that you set forth? Is the content right? Or are the objectives right? Really looking down into the data, and I'm not saying listening to stakeholders and they're telling you something. Listen through the data. You're really not just here. This is about the data. So when I say listen, that's digging in and finding out what they're really doing. Always evaluating the resources. That's obviously a part of strategic planning: the time, the talent, the money it takes to do certain things. But you also got to really analyze different scenarios. What are similar organizations doing that might have worked? What are future scenarios that you want to consider? Can you prove that with data? Can you look at what their impact might be? Are you looking at models? What are trends in industry, in the associations? Is there data there to back that up? And then always establishing the feedback cycles and pulling feedback data into a strategic planning process. People do 3-5 year strategic plans. I mean, in this day and age, strategic planning is about a 1 year out adventure if you're lucky. So you really always got to be evaluating and going back and having a good feedback cycle so you can evaluate progress, have the right tools to do that, and always kind of plug that back into your strategic planning and see if it's effective, if you're doing anything. Stuff is just changing way too fast. I think we learned that in the last year of all the strategic plans with all the initiatives that everybody had for 3 years thrown out the window last year with COVID and really realigning everything they need to do. So it's going to make people a little more nimble in thinking through their process. Data is going to drive that. So, let's think a little bit about what are the types of data analytics and throwing these things out and how are you going to get there? So I'm going to walk down through the most common data in our business that we're looking at. Descriptive data. This is like what is happening. It's the most common of all the data we look at. This is what provides you just basic key metrics and measures. An example might be your monthly P&L statement. That's a good example of just descriptive data. We can look exactly what happened last month. We know what we made. We know what we spent. The next step when it comes to complexity is diagnostic data. Why is this happening? And this is really the ability to take a tool and drill down into the data and kind of isolate the root causes of something happening, putting in different parameters and being able to, this is where you're starting to get from just looking at a report to looking at analytics and really diving in a little bit and trying to figure something out. Where the fun really begins, where we love to live, and Julie's going to talk about this a little bit, I think, later in some of the tools and stuff and the how-to, is predictive analytics. It's all about forecasting. I mean, we've all done budget forecasting and just taking a wild guess at it and hoping that we hit it. But it's really when you're looking at data and you have these right tools, you can really look at the likelihood of something happening in the future, a quantifiable amount or a point in time where something's going to happen. And this can all be built in predictive models. This is what's going to allow you to really start making decisions and use data to its fullest extent. And then the prescriptive model, which is the most complex, that's starting to utilize an understanding of what has happened, why it's happened, and then a variety of kind of what might happen. So it's combining all those different analysis for the user. And then as an organization, it allows you to choose the best course of action. That's really, what do you need to do? And as you can look at the scale there, obviously, as you go up that chain or down that chain, that's adding more complexity, but adding more value as you go through. And these are all things we can do with the data analytics tools. And then obviously from that communication path and making sure you're connecting back to the board deals in strategy, the executives deal in strategy. What are we going to do as an organization? So you've got to get people in that path, and you've got to tie the descriptive all the way down to the prescriptive and walk them through that continuum to get where you need to go. So how, as an organization, do we really become, data-driven at a strategic level? Data-driven, data-informed, whatever terms you want to use. We can talk about all these other key drivers. Obviously, having data management, data governance, and data quality and things like that is highly important. Having the right systems, those are all your different data, everything that's gathering data, and then being able to aggregate that data and get information out of it and answers, and then the overall user experience for people. But I think the most important and what we're trying to allude to today is really creating that culture of analytics. And that's what's going to get you to strategic thinking about data. When there's a culture of analytics, your employees, the staff, they're naturally using data and insights to support decisions. This is what's improving their overall performance. It's improving the products and services. They have success criteria from the very beginning and measurable activities, and that's what's driving decisions. If they have, this strong analytics culture in place, they're then employees are expected to contribute to an overall data and analytics vision and strategy that empowers the overall strategic plan for the organization. This is that connection to board thinking. You know, if everybody's thinking like a board member and having that very strategic view and really rooted in analytics and have an analytics culture, you know, that gets you to where you can propose, you know, new data-driven projects and initiatives, because you're really understanding not just what's feasible, but what's potentially valuable to your audiences. And these are all the things we talk about and kind of pulling that together. So that's what we're trying to get to tie the staff level, the executors, to that strategic level of the board. And this can all be driven through data and building an analytics culture. And then just why data, where you're trying to get to. This is kind of the easy formula, tying together the things I just said. So if you can really understand your customers and needs, and you can apply strategy to define a path forward, then you're going to improve to be able to do more with less because you're highly efficient. And what does that equal? Or what we're all trying to get to, which is member satisfaction. So I'm going to turn it back over to Julie to talk a little bit about some of the value models of data.
Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the how-to portion, right? We have kind of the groundwork laid, and you can certainly work through some of these frameworks that David provided as well. But how can you see through the complexities around data? I think that's sometimes where we get hung up, is where do we start? How do we see through those? Find common ground. I think there was a comment, you know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And so how do we get everybody on the same bandwagon and establish those priorities? So this is a way that you can use these 6 value modes of data to align around. And so what I've seen people do is rate every piece or KPI on one of these value modes, 1 to 10. Okay. And so you can read them here. We can send them out after as well. But they should be falling into multiple categories, not just one. And then you might even want to, as an organization, prioritize these categories. So the value modes are improved processes. Almost always data is going to do that, but you need to break it down a little bit more for your organization. Improve your competitive position. So that could be engagement within your own membership and within your non-members and how they're engaging. Mind share, I think that has become even more important, where we have, you know, for-profit companies coming up with more virtual events, and when we go back to in-person events, and really keeping the mind share of our members and future members. New and improved products and services. Like I said, many of these might fall into a couple value modes, and they should likely fall into a couple value modes. And new and improved products and services, this is typically stemming from better customer and market data. So it's when you tie that all together, you can really understand what products and services that you should be offering. I'm not going to attempt to say number 4 because it all gets all jumbled up in my mouth, but the idea is building data into products and services. And so we're starting to see more associations do that. You might not have as many pieces of data or buckets of data that fall into this, but you may want to strive to get there. And then all of a sudden that may become a top priority, and you can have people kind of align around that to establish that as a priority. Improved human capabilities. And so this could be something as simple as allowing technology or analytics platforms do what they do, so humans can do what only humans can do. So think about that in your role. You know, how much of your day is spent doing mundane tasks that could be replaced by some sort of technology, and you certainly wouldn't miss that, right? We want to be focusing on those things that only we can do. And then improved risk management. And so all of these are value modes of data. You can write them down. Like I said, we'll send them, and this can be an exercise you go through to help prioritize as an organization. Okay, the next how-to that I'm going to walk through a framework with you guys. And again, this is something that you can do on your own. You could do as a department. You can kind of put a committee together to have cross-functional teams. That way you're all working on your vitals as an organization. So think about it, right? We walk into the doctor to get a physical. There are thousands and thousands of tests that doctors could potentially run on you. but who knows what those are? We're not going to run them all as soon as you walk into the doctor's office, right? We're going to check your vitals to figure out exactly one area of focus. So we might check, your heart rate, and we might find that it is extremely high. And then we might run some tests based on that. And it's no different when you're thinking about breaking down your metrics and your key performance indicators. You can't run everything all at once. You need to have some vitals as an association that's going to tell you the health of your organization. And then once you know or can see something that's a little bit off, then you dive in deeper to run a few more tests. And by running tests, it's typically just asking more questions of the data that you already have. But this allows you to put some direction behind your focus and energy, because I know all of us are typically running short on time. And so having these vitals allows you, no matter where you are in, whether you're an executive director, manager, working in membership, it really doesn't matter. The vitals will be able to point you in the right direction on what you can do next to tie the tactics in the operations to your strategy, to your mission. And so that's what we're trying to show you today in a short period of time on how to do this. So I'll run through these really quickly. First of all, you should only have a handful of them. People might say like, oh my goodness, like how do I boil everything down to 5 or 6 metrics, right? What about the rest of them? They're also important, but you don't need to worry about them until you kind of get the vitals down. So step 1, very simple, list all of the metrics that you have. So think about performance goals, all of your committee meetings, department meetings, absolutely anything. List them all out in one place for your team to look at. 2, place them into categories. So these are just some example categories that I've seen work well: quality, cost, growth, member experience. And so again, a handful. You don't want to have 20 categories. You want to have a handful of categories. Then place all of the metrics that you just listed into one of these categories. Identify the broadest measure within each category. And so this is stuff anybody can do. It's just a matter of going through the framework and doing it. So ask yourself, is there something broader? Is there some measure that would be what more widely describe the business performance in each category? And hey, guess what? You have your vitals. And so in this example, you would have 4 of these. Like I said, a handful, 5, 6 would be fine. And then in step 4 is really important to making sure you obtain and organize the data so you can have real-time dynamic visuals, because you can't be going through this exercise every day. It's no longer acceptable to have, static reporting that's a month, a quarter even old. We want to make sure that we're tying, again, our strategy to our operations, to our tactics. So that's a how-to that you can, take back and do tomorrow if you're feeling ambitious. So the other piece of breaking this down is making sure people have what they need, right? So give staff what they need. And these are some of the common things. We want to remove barriers. We want data from all of the systems tied together, getting away from that spreadsheet mentality, the kind of rows and columns that you look at and you say, oh my goodness, I can't tell a trend. I don't know if something's going up or down. You really need to have your vitals in something where you can easily identify where there might be something really great going on or something, not so great going on, so we can go ahead and pivot and do something different. And then the same thing, board and executive. So whenever we're talking about, the flow of data and information, if everybody's looking at and using something similar, then of course you're going to have less of the telephone game going on, less of the, right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing going on, or at least that they're moving the needle or not moving the needle, which I think everybody's trying to do and accomplish so they can push their missions forward. So this is one thing, a pulse report. This is exactly what I was talking about. When you think about the health of your organization, having your vitals on something like a pulse report. So no matter where you sit, a board member, an executive, you can go on and you can understand those key metrics that tells you the health of your organization. So really important. you can walk through a couple of those how-tos, and somebody calls theirs a scorecard. I've seen it called a couple of different things. Those are all great names. The goal is to really understand the health, so you can tie that from strategy down to tactics, which is what we're talking about today. So this is just an example when I was thinking through this, and I connect with a lot of associations, CEOs, and executive directors. And what do we really want to see, right? I want to see metrics that align with business objectives. Metrics for metrics' sakes don't help anybody. I think, we've all been in a scenario where that's been thrown out there. Somebody, walks in and defends their number or throws out a metric, and you're like, okay, what does that even mean? So that's one of the points to having qualitative data. Is that putting it in context, right? Is that number good? Is that number bad? What does that mean? What does that number reveal? And so when you're thinking about putting together your vitals or your scorecard or your pulse report, you want to consider all of these things, no matter where you are, right? And then the other one that I'm always interested in, and I think many associations are interested in, how our marketing investments, how our operational investments that we make are tied to revenue and growth. And so when you can tie this all together, you can really put together a nice executive dashboard that ties everybody together, so you're not playing that crazy game of telephone as much anymore. And then how do you communicate these results? And I think people get a little hung up on this, right? They maybe just want to pass it along. They don't always want to be the person that can interpret and pull insights out, but it's really just being curious. It's nothing more than that. It's looking at the information provided, data for data's sake, not going to do anything. You want to pull information into insights, into action. And that's really how you're going to tie your tactics back to your strategy and your mission, is following that framework all the way through to action. And so you want to use visuals and dynamic dashboards to show results over time. And so again, putting things in context so people really understand where you're moving as an organization, how your efforts are supporting your goals or not supporting your goals. So again, you can pivot and change those. Tying your metrics to benchmarks or targets. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, we don't really have one. You have a budget, use that. Start there and start using that as a target for your numbers and your metrics. And then be honest about the results. I think a lot of times data, and this came up in the chat, can drive transparency. And, that could be a cultural change for people. But it can also be an opportunity to use data for the offense rather than the defense. And so that's something else I encourage everybody to do when you're coming to the table with data. Are you using it for the offense or defense? And as much as we can move away from individually, departments, teams, using data for defense and using it for offense, we can move towards a culture of data and transparency and data-guided decision-making, which everybody always wants to get to. But there are small things that you can do to really break that down. There is no, silver bullet out there. It's all these small things that allow an organization to move forward and really leverage their data to work for them, to give them that competitive advantage, to have them come up with the next non-dues revenue source that, they've always wanted. Now you can do that, and you can have the data confidence to make those decisions. Okay, so key takeaways. I know we threw a lot at you today. I'll make sure we get some of these frameworks and how-tos out to you guys. So we went through, you should now know the types of data and analytics. So if you want to get dangerous at the dinner table and talk through those that David had shared with you guys, common organizational issues and how to overcome those, the 6 value modes to determine the very simple question, how can data help me, or how can data help our organization? Those six value modes will break that down for you. The 4 steps to finding your association's vitals. I encourage everybody to go back and go through this exercise. It can be Pretty simple. It's just actually going through the motion and committing to doing it and putting it down on a piece of paper. And then how and what to deliver at each level of the organization. So really understanding how to break down your data into information and deliver that to the people that need it when they need it. And David will leave you guys with a couple of things to think about, and then we will open it up for any questions or any, I don't know, Katrina, if you caught any questions that we missed as we were kind of talking through. So yeah. David, you want to leave everybody with something?
Yeah, no, that was great. Thanks, Julie, tying it all together. And yeah, I think some of the, when I think about things to think about when you're talking about this, data can't speak for itself. It's up to you to give it a voice or try to speak truthfully. And I think that's, you know, you're always trying to tell a story and it needs to be a true story. The data, as Julie said, just a great analogy, to use data for the offense, not the defense side. And I saw a question in there about starting out with garbage data. And, you know, it's a great time to do that now. And this Chinese proverb kind of applies to that. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So it's never too late to start the process of going through this and understanding what data can support strategic initiatives and strategic goals, and get started on making sure you're collecting that and maintaining that data now. So that's all I had. Thanks for listening today. I'll turn it over to Katrina, I think, to close this out.
Yeah, one thing I'll throw in I missed the question, so I apologize, but people generally will throw out this idea that we have bad data, we can't use it. When you're dealing with data and analytics, you just need it to be good enough to see a trend, to give you some sort of indication. And so it's actually a misconception, I think, a lot of times, or people use it as a barrier to start when it doesn't really have to be, because I bet you have something, you have some field, you have something that you can use to at least give you an indication to see a trend. Different than reporting. Reporting, you're going to need those numbers to align more. Analytics, you're not going to. You're just using it to see what happened over time. And so it doesn't have to be, 100% complete, 100% accurate. It's never going to be, right? You just need to find what that threshold is to give you a comfort level to make a decision on whatever metric or piece of data that you're using.
Great.
All right, I didn't see any questions that you guys missed unless any come in last minute here. So our last slide here is just about our new analytics guide. So we've taken kind of the best of these how-to series, different topics, and put them into a downloadable ebook. So there's lots of good stuff in here about how to increase member renewals, how to use your engagement scores, what to do with your unstructured community data. It's got lots of good stuff. So I threw the link in the chat. You can check that out and download it. And like I mentioned in the chat, we'll be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow with the recording. We'll put some of the key takeaways and some of those vitals that Julie mentioned in that follow-up as well. And then for anyone who wanted CAE credit, I will take a look at the chat with your names and send you certificates of completion, so you have that on file. And then finally, we always are looking to do better. So we've got a short survey when you close out of Zoom that'll pop up if you can take a look at that, complete it. We actually use that data to help guide our other topics and what we can do better. So we appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And thank you for all of the comments and questions in the chat.
Thanks, everyone.
I hope to see you guys soon.
Yep. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.